So the spirits talked a little bit about a separate reality in the separate reality video, and particularly in the Nagual one, they talked about that kind of war between the feminine and the masculine. They wanted to focus in a little bit on the separate reality and how that works. We've got the separate inner reality. Now, when a dominant force come in and take over a land, perhaps like the American Indians or perhaps the Aboriginals or something like that, a dominant force comes in. What they do with them is they bring in their dominant reality. If there's a massive amount of numbers to overwhelm the population, the native population, what they're doing is, by sheer weight of numbers and the power of those numbers of people, they're bringing in almost a sea of a new reality. And if they're wishing and wanting to completely own all that new land, which obviously has happened throughout history, what they want to do is to subjugate those native people. They want to create a new reality. They've brought in their new reality in order for their laws and everything that they want to own all this land. They want to own this life, this land, whatever the resources are there. They want ownership of it. They've stolen it. They want to own it. The way they go about this is to change the reality. The people they've come in on, the native people they've come in on, would have their own customs and traditions, etc., and life that was all. And what they're looking to do is to completely, it's like a contrast level. It's like you can imagine the dominant force coming in here and the natives here, the people who naturally belong to that land here. Now, in order for their new reality to be dominant, in order for them to dominate completely, they need their reality to dominate, their reality. They need to bring in a separate reality. So therefore, this reality from those native people, they have to make it wrong. So the way to do that, they want to subjugate and make everything about it just a nonsense, worthless, meaningless. In order to achieve that contrast, to achieve that truth, if you like, they have to create this reality. And the only way to do that is because there isn't really that truth, is there? As human beings, we are human beings, we are all human beings. But they want themselves to be the superior, the dominant one. In order to bring themselves up, they have to push that one down. They have to push those people down. I'm not talking morally here, rightly or wrongly. It's a terrible thing to have happened, of course. But just in terms of what's actually happened and how they've proceeded and how they've achieved this, it's all about this separate reality. This is what they want to talk about. They want to talk about the only way to bring about this change in reality is through contrast. So the only way for them to make themselves superior, because they're just human beings, they're not superior and probably inferior if they're very, if they're a particularly evil kind of people that may have started this. The only way for them to actually almost legitimately in their mind make themselves superior, if you're superior, then it follows there must be people below you. It's like having slaves, isn't it, really? If you give someone a status of a slave, you're automatically up there. It's like a contrast thing. So what they've brought in will be a new reality that they've brought in here. In order to pump themselves up, they've had to totally. So this would involve abuse, terrorizing, persecuting, changing the laws so that there's no protection, dispelling, ripping away basically it's ripping the rug away from, ripping the reality away from those people that have been invaded with their new reality. Now, that kind of makes sense. But that's the massive force that comes in with that amount of energy. That takes a lot of energy of that incoming force. What they're really then aiming to do in the future, over generations, is to not have to use all that massive amount of energy, which it took on first invasion. They don't want to use all that energy this time. They want it to tick away naturally like a sort of a time bomb. So what they've done by those first generations, by subjugating and persecuting and abusing and ripping the whole reality, the fabric, they have basically saying to them, our life, our values are, our whole selves, who we are, is so superior to you down there. That's what they've done. By making people fearful, abused, they've pushed them down so they're not in a position to fight. They don't have the energy, will, or they've ripped their energy from them so that they don't. So there'll be pockets of fighting, of course, but on and off. But generally what they've done is they've had so much force come in that they've used that force to strip. So that's the first thing, to terrorize, to strip, almost their spirit, break them, so that they've a lot of energy being taken from them, from those people. But what they're really looking to do in the generational future is to really get, with those sorts of people, those people have been persecuted to that degree, and if their identity has been ripped from them, their cultural identity, their historical, their connection with the land, everything like that has been ripped from them. It's like they've been reduced down. They've taken from them. Their energy is very, very low. The energy is low. They've almost abused a lot of leaks in their vases, They've made so many leaks in their vases through their dominant force. But what they're really looking to do with the generational thing is to wind up that mouse, to wind up the mouse in these people so that the future generations have that sense of we are subservient. And so that they self-destruct, the new generation self-destruct, they drink. And you see that with the Aboriginal societies. They have addictions, and some of them, they drink. They feel that sense of the worthlessness that's been imparted to them by the dominant force that have said, we are superior. If we are superior, you have to be inferior. But what they're really looking to do is to change the reality. And to change the reality by winding up that clockwork mouse, and to save their energy, making sure that the up and coming generations have got that low worth mentality, so that they can do the work for them. They've done the domineering, coming in the domineering, that was their bit. They're really wanting to percolate, make that continue, that cycle of abuse. They don't have to put the energy in anymore. They do it to themselves. Those people that have had the rug ripped from under them, what they're really wanting to do is to keep enforcing that reality, that low reality on those people. Can't get this, no one wants to employ you, no laws don't support you, your land not protected, Constant, the ceiling has been brought right down on their reality. So, but this idea of perpetuating the reality for the future generations by winding up that little clockwork mouse, so they do it to themselves. So the abuse to such a level that they'll do it to themselves. They'll self-destruct. That's what they're aiming for. The first domination, the second domination is this indoctrination of self-destruct, which saves them energy. They do it themselves. The self-destruct is done. And it's the same with any abused people. And I'm comparing the feminine to the fact that the feminine has been abused. That's not to say the masculine hasn't, the male hasn't been abused too, but talking in the feminine energy force, particularly those people who have, it's a very strange coincidence that most of these people, the shaman Aboriginal people, have been very culturally aware and very strong in their feminine, you know, because the masculine will come in and dominate the feminine. And when we look at this objectively, it's such a pattern. It's such a pattern. It is a pattern of domination by the masculine. It's a subtle war. You know, we both have masculine and feminine. It's not a distinction between a male and a female specifically like that. It's distinction between the masculine and the feminine within us. And the feminine, which is the connecting to the earth and the culture and the inner self, mostly the inner self, the nagul, that spiritual vase, is what is being attacked with the purpose of subjugating the feminine reality, always keeping it really down there. A people that's been that abused to that amount, feminine or otherwise, it would take so much energy, so much healing for them to come up and come forward. It takes generations. It puts them on the back foot. It's the same with the slave trade. You know, the people that have, it puts people on the back foot. That's not to say people aren't remarkable, they are, but when that amount of energy has been kind of beaten out of them, you know, it's going to take a lot to find that energy back, to reclaim it, So they really wanted to talk about this separate reality. And so when a dominating, you know, you look at the same thing with the Nazi Germany. The Nazi Germany were really trying to, first of all, pockets of force, but actually the indoctrination was what they were really attempting to achieve, was the indoctrination of this new reality of them, us, them, us, them, us, them, us. That's how it is. People are people. Them, us, superior, inferior, superior, inferior. And backing it up with reality all the time, smashing up shops, you know, from Jewish people, this kind of thing all the time. This tipping balance of it, what they're attempting to do is internalize the separate reality, so that people are doing the clockwork mouse things themselves. They don't have to. They can do their speeches, etc., etc., etc. But they're really wanting people to internalize the indoctrination, so that they carry that virus, almost like, to the world that they are living in, their own community. That's what, and that's why the separate reality, that separate reality notion is so important, because it explains away the way that the dominant people will want to use that contrast in order to create a new reality that then compacts and compounds and continues over generations and generations. Job done, isn't it? It's job done. If those generations can perpetuate those low-born ideas they have about themselves, about their self-worth, etc., etc., a job done. You know, predator, prey. You know, saves the energies, the energy from the predators. Really, they're up and running. It just explains that this whole reality consciousness. It explains it a little bit about the contrast levels and what a dominating force is trying to achieve. But it all relates back also to the masculine and the feminine as well. Because once we understand that about the new reality, we can start to step back and see that actually the feminine has been massively persecuted. Why? Why? Well, that's the leap in consciousness for us, for all of us. It's the leap in the consciousness for all of us to actually just change that balance slightly. Brain, will, inner self coming up. That's not what the darker spirits want, because it takes away their feeding frenzy. It takes away, if we're all containing our energies around in the world, you know, we can do what we wish. We can achieve what we want. We're not going to be feeding. We're not going to be like fungal feed for other spirits wandering around. They have to get their own sort themselves out, get their own life in order. You know. So the separate reality thing is a really important concept that they want to talk about for the individual, and also it relates to our own change in our own self, and then it also relates to, perhaps as an example, a dominating force that will come into a country, and what they're trying to achieve. It's really indoctrination is the key to the spreading of those thought processes.